Good morning, beloveds. I had a cameo for you, and then I knocked everything over, made a loud noise, and she went shooting out of here. So sorry about that. Sugar had come in with me because she's clingy this morning. And then I made a loud noise, and she's like, I'm gone. That is life with cats. I don't know what you did this weekend, but I slept this weekend. Instead of going to the park on Saturday, when I got up and my husband heard my voice, he's like, go back to bed. And I did. And then I took a nap on Saturday afternoon, and I got up and I went to bed too late on Sunday, and then got up, did the service, came home, and took like an epic nap. Like I woke up. It's one of those naps that you wake up and you're like, what century is it? So like I slept this weekend. I needed it. And I feel 100 times better now. So yeah, sometimes you just need to sleep. Yeah. It was a gorgeous weekend. I missed the opening weekend of the Texas Renaissance Festival for the first time in probably 15 years. Working. I've been going since 1997, and I don't know if I'm going to go this year. I really don't. But it sounds like people they did, they wore the masks, and they, for the most part, social distance. And then towards the end of the afternoon, they got hot. And so they started taking the masks off. And I think the alcohol had something to do with that. So if we do go, we're going to be there at like gate opening, and then we'll probably be gone as soon as the alcohol is hit a certain level. I'm not against alcohol, but once you've had enough alcohol, then you stop making good decisions. So, all right. It is October 5th. Our title is I Pray Without Ceasing Because I Live in Constant Faith. So I'm just going to go ahead and say this now before I actually get into it. When the Bible quote is to pray without ceasing. And people are like, how do you do that? Well, I will tell you that to pray without ceasing means to be conscious of your thought at all time. Frequently when we think, okay, thought is creative, and thought wrapped in emotion is more creative than just a regular thought. So you don't have to mind every thought that comes through your head. But it's one of those things where if you think about it, if you have more negative thoughts coming through your head than positive thoughts, you might want to check that and rethink that, because praying without thinking or praying without ceasing is that every thought is creative. Is it creative to the same degree? Absolutely not. But if every thought is creative, then you are praying without ceasing. What are you praying for? Think about it. All right. So that's just a hint. And now let's see what Ernest has to say about it, because that's what I think. I don't usually tell you what I think until afterwards. Today is different. The secret power of faith is in a conscious union of the soul with the oversoul. Realizing that God is an ever-present reality, I know that I cannot escape my union with the infinite. Therefore, I know that I am touched with the spirit of wholeness, filled with everything that the perfection of this divine spirit must contain. My being is so close to the divine that there is no separation whatsoever. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. I understand the meaning of the thought that no one can shut the doorways of my self-expression. I understand that there is no problem that cannot be solved. I realize that the truth is already established, and that the power of good is mine today. In all its completion and perfection, in all its purity and peace, in all its wonder and joy. knowing that I abide in the Spirit of truth, and that the Spirit of truth abides in me today, or abides in me. Today, I open my consciousness to a greater acceptance of life. I realize that my entire being is in the hands of a higher power, that my thought is molded by the divine will, that my mind responds completely to the indwelling presence that is God. I fast from fear and feast upon faith, for I am certain that every good thing that God has intended for me exists right here where I am. Acknowledging my good, I enter into the banquet hall of life. I recognize the Spirit as my host. I recognize that all others are unified with me in the spirit of good. I pray without ceasing because I live in perfect faith. It would appear that I'm losing the battle with the sun this morning. Okay, well, you know. All right, I'm going to try this. Okay. Shift it around a little bit. You can see my dragon over my shoulder. The secret power of faith is in a conscious union of the soul with the oversoul. Okay, if you're not familiar with Emerson, Emerson wrote a series of essays. Wow, I just cannot. Okay. Emerson wrote a series of essays, and one of them was called The Oversoul. And I admit, when I first started reading Emerson, I didn't care for him. But the further I've gotten into Science of Mind, the more I understand Emerson. So it might be worth it to you to read Emerson, The Oversoul. And I believe that if you Google it, it's available on a PDF. And I think it's free too. So check it out. Realizing that God is an ever-present reality, I know that I cannot escape my union with the infinite. I mean, really, if you believe that God is good, if you believe that spirit is good, if you believe that it is life, why would you want to escape it? You are going to waste a whole lot of energy trying to get away from something that means good for you. And if you don't believe that, then maybe check what you believe about God. Therefore, I know that I am touched with the spirit of wholeness, filled with everything that this perfect divine spirit must contain. So, touched with the spirit of wholeness, and that everything that the perfection of this divine spirit must contain, you have access to. All you have to do is ask. Ask and act as if. My being is so close to the divine that there is no separation whatsoever. That's what we've been saying. That's what Science of Mind teaches. There is nowhere God is not. There is nowhere spirit is not. You are made up. You are literally made up of spirit. So whatever spirit is, that is your nature. And spirit is good. And spirit is love. That means that is your nature. Whatever other nonsense and mess that you've been taught that it is, you have access to good. You have access to love. You have access to wholeness, because that is what you are made of. And it is just the noise of the material world that has convinced you otherwise. If ye, this is definitely a Bible quote. It's in quotes. If ye abide in me, and my words abide in you, ye shall ask what ye will, and it shall be done unto you. If ye abide in me, so if you live in my spirit, if you live in my way, if you live in love, and my words abide in ye, my creative power, my words abide in ye, then whatever you ask for, Spirit's going to give you. And remember, Spirit doesn't judge, so sometimes we ask for things we don't really want. Which is why you want to live in the spirit of love and use the words of love creatively. I understand the meaning of the thought that no one can shut the doorways of my self-expression. I'm glad he does. I understand the meaning of the thought that no one can shut the doorways of my self-expression. There's nobody that can get between you and God. If anybody gets between you and God, that is you permitting that. You do not have to do that. There is nobody between you and God. There is nobody between you and spirit. Regardless of what any religion has told you, you have direct access to spirit. I understand that there is no problem that cannot be solved. I understand that there is no problem that can be solved. Some days that's kind of hard to believe, but that was what Reverend Jesse was talking about on Sunday. It's like there's no problem that can be solved. Just frequently we haven't embodied the solution because we don't know what it looks like. We don't know what it feels like. So maybe that's a place to start. I realized that the truth is already established and that the power of good is mine today, in all its completion and perfection, in all its purity and peace, in all its wonder and joy. Knowing that I abide in the Spirit of truth and that the Spirit of truth abides in me, today I open my consciousness to a greater acceptance of life. Today I open my acceptance. Every day I open my acceptance to open my consciousness to a greater acceptance. That is our job. Our job is to open our consciousness to a greater acceptance of life. Stop living small. I realize that my entire being is in the hands of a higher power. That may feel a little weird. I mean, science of mind, as Jesse said, we are the spirituality of the rebels. But we are also the spirituality of not playing small. So the higher power that we are in the hands of is spirit, and that is love. And we could do worse than be guided by that spirit. And frequently we do. So consciously I accept a greater truth. So I realize that my entire being is in the hands of a higher power, that my thought is molded by the divine will, that my mind responds completely to the indwelling presence that is God. And what are some other names? And Emma uses them, and Ernest uses them, and Emerson uses them. Other names for God are good, life, love, compassion, kindness. I fast from fear and feast upon faith, for I am certain that every good thing that God has intended for me exists right here where I am. If you needed reassurance, that would be the statement. I fast from fear and feast upon faith, for I am certain that every good thing that God has intended for me exists right where I am. So every good thing that God has intended for you is right where you are. Sometimes it's about opening your consciousness up and seeing it. And sometimes it does require some work on our part. Acknowledging my good, I enter into the banquet hall of life. I recognize the Spirit as my host. I recognize that all others are unified with me in the spirit of good. Okay, so I'm going to enter the banquet hall of life, and I recognize that the host is spirit, that the host is good. And I recognize that all others around me, so there is nobody who is not allowed into the banquet. So if you think that you have not been allowed into, no, you are absolutely allowed. You've been dithering at the doorway. Your host is waiting for you with open arms to come into the banquet hall of life. Along with all of our brothers and sisters. I pray without ceasing because I live in perfect faith. If I live in perfect faith, then that means I trust. And if I trust, then I am open to spirit. I am open to love. I am open to good. So, well, that's my thought on I pray without ceasing because I live in constant faith. Well, oh, the title was Constant Faith, and the ending is Perfect Faith. Interesting. All right, so our mission today ooh, there's so many. So many. All right, our mission today is to know that we have been touched with the spirit of wholeness and filled with everything that the perfection of this divine spirit must contain. Okay, our mission, should we choose to accept it, is to know that we have been touched with the divine spirit of wholeness and filled with everything that the perfection of this divine spirit must contain. Which means we have all of the energy that we need, all of the health that we need to accomplish the things that we choose to today. So I'm going to encourage you, as I always do, to do something loving for yourself, do something kind for yourself, do something compassionate for yourself. Self-care is a big deal, especially if you are working, if you're working from home, if you are helping kids with online school, if you are getting up as I do and going into work, self-care is very important. So that's why I say every time, loving, kind, compassion, do something for yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And your cup doesn't ever have to be empty because the strength and the energy and the wellness that you need is available to you from an inexhaustible source, from a host that welcomes you with open arms. So it is a beautiful day out there right now. I encourage you to open your windows, get some fresh air, do something that engages your mind and your body. And as I do love the phrase, open the windows of your soul and allow the breath of heaven to remind you that you live in heaven now. It is a conscious choice to open up and see. So remember that you are a beloved child of God, in whom spirit is well pleased, always and forever. All right then. Okay. Reverend Jesse was really good yesterday. If you haven't seen it, it is still on the Facebook Live. Just scroll back a couple of videos here. Or check out our YouTube, because it's up on the YouTube too. And I'm going to move into the process of my day. But Reverend David will be on with you around 5 p.m. today. And I will be back with you at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Have a wonderful day, beloveds.